Excellent. Okay, welcome, Emma. Thank you so much for coming on today. So if you're dropping in today, I highly recommend that you listen in because Emma has a very unique and fascinating story. It's been my absolute pleasure to work with Emma for the past 12 plus a few months. And together we were able to dive really deep and uncover quite a lot of things, but then something else that was amiss, and we were able to uncover what that was. And now Emma is here to share her story and her experience in working with me across this time. So a very warm welcome to you, Emma. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on here live today. I really appreciate it. So first of all, what I'd like to do is I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions and you can expand on that. And as always, just feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable in sharing. So, we've had an interesting journey together, and, you came on board in October 2022, and you came in, you already had the diagnosis of Hashimoto's, and you were looking at, you'd already done quite a lot of research yourself. And at that point in time, you'd worked with some other like GPs and functional medicine doctors, etc. And we got to work and we started looking at what I call the low-hanging fruit, the obvious things which we agreed were potentially the overarching triggers to your particular thyroid issue. And that was looking at stress and looking at the dietary pattern, looking at helping recalibrate your digestive health, etc., etc., etc. And there was improvement, but something was amiss, wasn't it?
That's right.
So to begin with, tell us and the people listening here today, if you'd like to share, your journey in working with me in the first 6 months prior to this next piece that we're going to talk about in a moment.
Sure. So I'll just give a little bit of background first as to sort of what was going on before I found you. So I'd been feeling quite unwell for probably about 4 years prior, and I'd been to countless GPs and specialists, spent quite a bit of money on them and on trying different things, and did various tests, but each of them came back with the conclusion that there was nothing wrong with me, even though I was feeling really unwell, and to the point that I actually took 12 months off work during that time because it was impacting my ability to work. So I was feeling pretty overwhelmed and frustrated and kind of not knowing what to do next. Just to give people an idea, some of my symptoms was quite a laundry list, but there was low energy, anxiety, depression, brain fog, frequent cold and flu symptoms, aches, digestive issues, skin rashes, and then just a general sort of feeling of being stressed, even though there was no obvious cause of that in my life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, quite a range of symptoms, and I think most of the doctors I saw decided it must have been psychological because they couldn't find any other reason.
Yeah, and how frustrating was that?
Yeah, that was very frustrating. I mean, it was confusing, and I did go and see a psychologist at the time just to see if maybe there was something there that was contributing, but it didn't feel like that was the problem to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was doing a lot of research, as you said, myself. And I joined a couple of Facebook groups and was just kind of trying to find my way and work out what to do next, and tried various diet changes, and that seemed to be quite a common recommendation on Facebook, was quite restrictive diets, which I did try, but I didn't find any significant improvement from that.
Yeah, because you even tried the autoimmune protocol, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried that. That was probably the main one I tried, and just sort of trying to avoid different things that might potentially be triggering me.
Mm.
So yeah, then I came across you, and we had a chat, and I thought that it sounded like you might be able to help. So after a bit of thought about whether whether it was the right step to take, I decided to take the plunge, and we sort of designed a package where I could come in and we could start doing some tests and start trying to dive in and work out what was going on.
Yes. So we did that first level of functional testing, and typically I will start here because most generally, there are some digestive issues. So we kind of went down that rabbit hole to begin with, and we found some interesting markers, and we got to work in that area, and kind of got some improvement. And then there was like, it was almost like, if you remember, it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I don't know, I was kind of like, no, there's something else. There's something else. Yeah. So, if you wanted to just give a little bit more insight into that period of time, because, you were kind of gaining confidence, but I remember then at the same time you were like, yeah, but it's, we haven't landed on it.
Yeah, so those first few months, as you said, there was a lot of focus on the gut health, which definitely needed addressing. So we were doing various like protocols, supplements and things to try and help that. And that part of it, as you say, like it felt to me like it was quite slow progress at the time. And I mean, it can be hard because you don't know at that point what the end is going to look like. And fixing your gut can, as I've learned, take a while.
Yes.
But, yeah, I did. Through that time, I took notes on how I was feeling, and it's been quite interesting to look back after the fact, and I can definitely see when like things were changing and just little gradual improvements that were happening.
Yes.
Time, but at the time, it was a little bit harder to see that as clearly as you were going through the process.
Yeah, because you were actually in it, you're in it. It's like, well, hang on, things still aren't quite right. But yeah, that's that retrospective view on things can often, give us that insight that, actually there was some gradual improvement along the way. Yeah. 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 But then, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say other things that were going on at that time as part of the program with you. So we had the online modules that you have, which were really great in just learning about different aspects of health. And like I think I was a fairly healthy person and I knew quite a lot of stuff, but it was really good just to have this kind of portal where there's all the information on diet and sleep and the different aspects. And I found that even though I felt like I knew quite a bit, that was still really helpful in kind of consolidating the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And consolidating the knowledge, but also seeing what would apply to you and grabbing what actually resonates and what you feel would help your unique picture, because there's not one size fits all. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, and probably the other thing, I'm just looking at my notes, the other thing that was quite useful during that time, so we had discussed about the emotional side of things as well and how that can be impacting you and stress. And you connected me with someone who's a psychotherapist, and I did a few sessions with her and just found that really helpful to better understand some of the emotional things going on in my life and how that might be impacting my health and just making some changes there. So that I think that was quite important as well as part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what, with thyroid wellness and Hashimoto's, there can be any number of triggers, and there isn't necessarily one root cause. There can be multiple. And during this time, you're working on all of those levels at a holistic level. So yeah, and you know what? And working with you, Emma, I have to say, like, you were so incredibly proactive. Like you were ready. Like you were more than ready, because you'd had enough. You'd had enough. And then, I'm just going to lead into this next phase then. I remember, and I've actually put this in my little write-up for today. I remember waking up at 3 a.m. and the word mold. It was just like mold. Okay. And I thought, and there were some things that kind of I flagged that it wasn't definitive in the testing that we'd done, because we already did quite a lot of functional testing. So it wasn't definitive, but it was kind of, it was like question mark, question mark, question mark. And then when I thought, okay, I'm going to follow my intuition, my instinct now. We're going to, I'm going to talk to Emma and let's just really explore this and investigate this. And thankfully you went, oh, okay, yeah, let's just continue. And that went, I was like, oh, amazing, because I really wanted to go down this rabbit hole. I call it a rabbit hole, really thoroughly, which led us to a whole new level of functional testing and uncovered, mold, like in the blood. And, that was revelatory, because when we got to work in eradicating that, which actually meant, with any type of, those listening, for any type of environmental toxin. And before I even go into that, I'm just going to say the issue of mold in people's homes is more prevalent. It's actually an epidemic, especially if you live on the east coast of Australia, in that area between maybe Coffs Harbour and even further south, because of the humidity. And mold is a huge issue. And what the stats are, that almost every second home is actually infected with mold. And if you happen to have that genetic susceptibility, that means that you're unable to detox it as well as potentially even your partner or somebody else. It can be a massive hazard to your health. And we actually uncovered that was actually that was the endotoxin, because I remembered you had a functional testing. You had a functional test that highlighted an endotoxin when we first started working together. And I said to you, what's this all about? What's this? And you said, well, that's what the functional medicine doctor uncovered. And I said, okay, so what is that? Like, what's been done about it? And anyway, I'm just going to leave it to you now to fill us in on that story.
Yeah. So this was such a learning curve. I never knew, like, there's always been a bit of mold here and there in houses as I've been growing up. I grew up in Sydney. I never thought too much of it. Like, it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't anything significant. There wasn't like black mold on the walls or anything like that. It was just, you might get a little bit on your shoes every now and then if it's been raining a lot, or just here and there.
Just normal stuff, right? Normal stuff that we find in any normal household, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I kind of never really thought too much about that in terms of health impact. But then, as you said, I was seeing a functional medicine doctor just before I saw you, and she did do a couple of tests which did suggest some sort of a biotoxin in my blood. And at the time, it wasn't specific that it was mold, but she did say to me, based on the symptoms that I'd mentioned, that it did sound like it could be mold. But I don't think I was quite ready. Like, I didn't quite grasp that at the time, and I didn't really know what to do about that either. I did get people in to come and assess the home and that, and spent more money on that, but one of them said it was going to cost quite a bit of money to fix drainage around the house and all sorts of things. And it was almost a bit like it was the too hard basket. And I wasn't totally convinced that that was the issue anyway.
Yeah.
So I didn't do anything further at the time. And then I started working with you, and I didn't even mention mold to you initially because it wasn't, in my mind, the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we uncovered that that's in fact what it was, and then we did some further testing to corroborate that. And then everything was pointing to, okay, this is why you're getting these signs and symptoms, which actually were mimicking what you thought were your thyroid symptoms.
Yeah.
The fatigue, the brain fog, the swelling in your throat, like every now and then you get this swelling. And that could be a thyroid issue. But now that we've, taken those necessary steps to actually detoxify your body and actually remove you from the source, or remove the source. No, actually, removes you from the source. Well, now, a lot of those signs and symptoms have already disappeared, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah, they have. It's amazing. As you said, like I just assumed this must be what a Hashimoto's flare feels like, because I'd heard people talking about that, and I did find that the symptoms sort of came and went a bit, so they'd be a bit worse at certain points, and then they'd be a little bit better. So I kept kind of describing it to myself and to other people as a flare, but then when we worked out that the problem was mold, and I actually decided to move out of my house and actually move out of the city into a drier climate, the symptoms just went. It was amazing.
Yeah, amazing indeed. And you know what? That's a huge decision. Like we talk about, like I often talk about, prioritizing our health. You moved home. I mean, at the end of the day, these are sometimes, look, I'm not suggesting that everyone who has these same symptoms has exactly we've uncovered with Emma. Everyone is so unique and individual, and the symptoms of Hashimoto's and thyroid overlap so many other potential issues. Everything from environmental toxins, biotoxins, to other issues that are occurring, hormonal imbalance, etc., etc. So hence working with me and in close proximity with me allows us to create a partnership, really create a partnership to really get all those little nuances and get as much information as possible so that we can take the right pathway. Yeah. So it wasn't wasted time. The initial functional testing was by no means wasted, because I'm not going to go into what we uncovered, because this is Emma's private pathology and functional report. However, it did highlight some things that just didn't add up, because I looked at Emma's diet and I thought, it doesn't really make sense, that this is what's actually showing up in the report. And let's just say Emma's diet, I suppose as the average dietary pattern was pretty healthy, really, really healthy, had all the vibrancy and this and that. So of course we did a lot of tweaking and refining in that area, but there was still something amiss. So now that we've found the actual root cause, and in Emma's case, this was the root cause, and there was a lot of other things that might have impacted at a lower level, but this is absolutely the root cause of. So now Emma knows this, and can you imagine if that wasn't uncovered? Honestly, I can only say that your health would be just a downward spiral, because if it wasn't discovered and if it wasn't rectified, so we always need to look at the source first, because can you imagine, you'd just be detoxing forever and a day for the rest of your life if you didn't actually take that bold move and make the decision, which is the only decision, to move out of that home. Even though it's a beautiful home, it was your place to live and set up the rest of your life. That is just such a bold move and a great decision. And clearly it's already paid off in terms of how you're feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually went back and visited my old area a few weeks ago and stayed in some homes there. And I had some of my symptoms return, and they were definitely mold infected, like low level, but like just typical Sydney homes that have some mold in them. So that was quite eye-opening to see that come back when I went there. And then when I went back here, within a couple of days, I was fine again.
So amazing and very impactful. So, for anyone who has these long chronic, signs and symptoms, this is definitely something that I bring into, the initial process, just to ensure that, we don't have something like that's impeding, because you know you could have the cleanest diet in the world, you could have the best stress management techniques in the world, and be doing all of the good things, but if you have a biotoxin in your blood, and if you have that's affecting your digestive health and affecting, you know, giving you some weird symptoms here and there that actually mirror thyroid, it could actually be something else. Now, Emma, that could have been a trigger to your Hashimoto's as well.
Mm.
You know, an initial trigger. So it'd be interesting now, like your journey moving forward. Now that we've gotten rid of that, be interesting to see how your thyroid starts behaving. You know,
Mm.
like in say 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 12 months' time, and that might just completely normalize. I would say that it will actually.
Mm.
Yeah. So, um, very much exciting time. So, what would you say, you know, what would, well, I suppose you might have already answered it, but I'm going to ask anyway. What is the biggest take home from your 12-month healing journey, you know, in the time that we spent together, if
Um,
you've got one?
I've probably got a couple. I think number one would be that it it's not just diet and exercise. So your environment is really important.
Yeah.
Um, so just learning more about that, and like, for example, the impact of toxic chemicals that might be being used around the home, or mold. There's lots of different ways it can, lots of different things, but yeah, environment. And probably the other one would be just the emotional side of things and how that can also impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, we look at, and we did a lot of work on that at the retreat too in June there. You came along too, which was fantastic, to meet in person and really, you know, dig deep. And that's something that I want to continue, you know, for clients, so that we can have that close proximity in person to really, you know, delve into those other layers as well. Because, you know, like what you said, like there's so much more than diet and exercise. I mean, you can be actually scratching at the surface if you only stay in that area, and if you're only willing to sit in that area. You know, there's
Mm.
other layers that make up and provide us with the, you know, the health abundance that we all desire. Yeah. So
Yeah.
being bold enough to explore those other layers, and, you know, make some changes, you know, make the necessary changes to the point where that just becomes your way and a part of your life, because you've made some significant changes, haven't you?
Yeah, and the timing of that retreat was perfect because we just found out about the mold being the issue for me. And I
Yes.
was going through that process of deciding to move house and what that would mean for both my work and my husband's work, and just everything around that. So the retreat, I mean, apart from just being a great way to meet like-minded people and meet you in person and just have a fun and healthy weekend, but it also gave me the opportunity to clarify some things in my mind about the future.
Yes, absolutely. Taking that break away from your normal life to really get that clarity. Yeah, you know, we all need a bit of that. Yeah. So, I just want just one last question. You know, what advice would you give to someone who suffers from chronic issues, you know, where their GP has actually put it in the too hard basket and it's been dismissed as psychological?
Yeah, I mean, I, I would say definitely find either a good naturopath like Megan or a holistic doctor who will look at not just kind of the symptoms and trying to address them, but will actually look holistically at everything that's going on in your life to try and find the root cause. I would personally not go down the path of specialists as like I did at the time, because I found that they were quite focused on their particular specialty,
Yeah,
which meant that they missed things that were more important in my case.
yeah,
So yeah, but at least based on my learning, I would start with the naturopath sooner than I did, and really just try and work out what the root cause of the problem is.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great advice. And you know what, as I said, it's been such a pleasure to work with you, because, you know, like I work with many different types of personalities, and your level of proactivity and commitment to your whole health and wellness, and really finding that root cause, and backing yourself and knowing and trusting that, you know what, it wasn't psychological and there was something that we just needed to find, was just great, because it allows us to actually form that partnership and really uncover what that in fact was. So here's to a fantastic future, a very, very bright future for you in your new your new home and new drier climate that absolutely suits your genetic predisposition so much better.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Megan. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, it's been great. So I can't wait to hear how you go in the future, and keep in touch. And once again, thanks again for coming on board today. And, if you're watching this and you feel inspired by Emma's story, and if you feel that there could be something amiss in your situation, I invite you to get in touch and we can have a conversation to see what it might look like for you to, journey your healing path with me. So that's it for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.